Hey y'all, it's Katie. Welcome back to From My Vanity and welcome to a half-done face. Feel a little weird, but I wanted to sit down and create this video sharing with you guys my tips and tricks for working with pastel shadows and how I get them to work. Now, I'm not an expert at this. I'm not saying that I'm like really good at pastels, but I have been using a pastel palette and I found a way that I really enjoy, that I really find works well, that I get the most pigment and the most impactful shadows out of this palette. And I've really had no issues working with this. So I thought it'd be fun to do this video while I am testing this palette out and show you guys some tips and tricks in what I do to try to get the most vibrant pastels that I can. And I thought it'd also be fun to do a half face. So on one side, I think on this side, I'm going to do my tips and tricks of how I get it to look the best. And on this side, I'll do like not the wrong way, but just how you can use these pastels as you normally would do your eyeshadow, as lots of people like to do their eyeshadow, and how it won't be as impactful or as vibrant as it can be. So I thought that'd be fun to do. I have not done a look with this palette using all the don'ts. Now, make sure you guys take the do's and don'ts loosely. I'm going to term it that for the video, but you can use these however you want. If you want a very light wash of colors, you might want to do all the don'ts so that you don't get intense color. But if you're looking at this Pastel Pup palette, if you're looking at any kind of pastel palette and you want to get the most pigment that you possibly can from a pastel, I'll show you guys how you can do that on the do side, and then we'll have the don't side. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it, and I'm going to share with you guys, I think there's 5 little tips and tricks that I've been doing to get the most pigment that I can out of my pastel shadows. Okay, so we're all zoomed in. Let's get started. The first tip that I have is to use a white base instead of a skin tone color base. So for my don't side, I'm going to use the Gerard Cosmetics Clean Canvas Eye Base. Just because it really is a perfect skin tone match for me. And it's just a kind of one and done. I don't have to use a primer underneath the eye base because this really helps make my shadow last all day long. So I'm just going to blend this out. And then for my do side, I'm going to use the Makeup Revolution, I'm talking weird today, Conceal and Correct Concealer in C0. It's the white shade. And I'm just going to blend this out with the same little brush, just kind of wipe it up. So I'm not getting this color over there, but as you can see, this is pretty much my skin tone. Now this is not like a new trick. I know this is very common, but I didn't want to include it because this is one way I've been getting the most out of my shadows. Like I said, I'm not saying I'm a pro when it comes to working with pastels, but this is what I found to work. And also not even just pastels, neons. This is what all the tips and tricks I'm sharing with you about pastels is what I was using to get the most out of my neon pigments as well. Okay, we're gonna go with that. I already have my face makeup done, which I don't like to do, but I went ahead and did it anyway because I was doing it while Levi was awake. Anyway, another don't that I would say, or don't, is if you're wanting to get the most, leave your base tacky because that really helps the shadows adhere. And the don't would be that a lot of people like to set their shadows. Now it does make blending a lot easier, but you're not gonna get as much pigment. So I guess it depends on what you prefer. If you want the most pigmented or you just want an easy blend, if you want just a light wash of colors, set your eyeshadow. But if you're wanting to get the most pigment out of your pastels or neons, don't set it because the tacky base really does help the shadows grip. I think I'm just going to take these 3 shades and do that ombre on the top lid, and I'll probably put this on the bottom. Anyway, so making sure that I am tapped out, there's no creases, because that's something I've noticed with both pastels and neons, is if you have any creases in any kind of matte, honestly, any light, matte, bright shade, if you put that shadow on top of a crease, it won't like blur away the crease, it'll just make the crease or the crevice or whatever, little crease you have stand out. Okay, so the next tip is to use more packing and patting motions instead of sweeping motions. I think this is the biggest, honestly the biggest tip that I have when it comes to getting the most out of any shadow, not just pastels, not just neons, is I'm going into Ice Worm there and I'm going to pack it on the inner half and just focus on packing and pressing instead of like a bigger, fluffier brush and just sweeping, which I feel like is not a common or, what people tend to do, but it's easier to sweep and blend. I feel like that's what we were, especially when I was getting into makeup, that's really what I was taught. But I found that if you do more packing and then once you've packed, if you do more packing and then after you've packed it on and your tacky base is set, then blend, it's a lot easier to work with and you get the most pigment. But anyway, after I've packed it on, I will go ahead and just kind of feather out the edges. Again, doing more tapping and then lightly blending. For this side, I'm just going to use like a very fluffy type of brush. I feel like that's very common that people like to use for when they're working all over the lid. And I'm just going to, instead of patting down, I'm just going to sweep, because that's, again, something I think that, not that a lot of people do, and not that it's wrong, but it's just a method that is very easy to do on a set base because you don't have to worry about skipping, but I think it doesn't give as much impact as the shadow could. Oh, I'm tapping. This is hard. I've really gotten into tapping my shadow on instead of buffing and blending. Okay, so yeah, that's where we're at now. As you can see, at least I think I see in my mirror a big difference. Okay, so for this next part, I'm just going to kind of speed through because I'm going to do the same technique to the other two colors on my eyes. I'm packing instead of blending. And another thing, another tip to do, I'm not really going to demo this just because my eye look, I didn't do it on this eye. I guess I could have, but anyway, is to work from lightest to darkest. I found that to be the most helpful when working with pastels and neons, because if you start with the darkest and then try to blend a light pastel or a light neon into it, you can't really do a whole lot of blending and meshing with pastels and neons. I think it's just the nature of pastels and neons. So I find that using packing motions and going from light to deep really gets a more effortless blend than if you tried to do it the reverse and then just really spend a lot of time blending. You can kind of get patchy issues. So just want to throw that out there, but I'm going to speed through the other two colors on these eye looks and you guys can just watch. Okay, I was trying to use a fluffy blending brush because I often see people using fluffy blending brushes. Let me try this one. I don't know, it wasn't working very well. One use I like to use for fishy is that I like to use it as a transition shade, so I'm going to just stick it right up here. And still I'm going to be tapping it and then blending it. So I'm going to kind of tap it over this crease shade and then I'll blend it out just to use another color and just to show you how I like to soften out edges by taking a very light color like fishy and just using it to kind of act as that little go-between your brow, kind of where it ends in your brow. Now this is really close to my skin color, but as you can see, like, I can't see this color at all. It really needs that tack, that white behind it, especially for this shade, just to help it at least show up. And even like on this side, it's very light. I don't even know if you can see it on camera, but I can see it in person. So for the lower lash line, another thing that I have found to help them really show up is to use very small brushes. And not even like this small, because this, I mean, this is nice, but it's still a blending brush. I'm talking like something you can really get in there and stamp. So that's what I'm going to use for Flipper, the other green in here. And I first go on and I stamp it on. And now my under eyes have already been set. So this is on a set base. If I really wanted to, I could go and, you know, put up more concealer there and leave it tacky. But this is also why I tend to do my face last, because then I can do my under eyes right after I do put on my concealer and it'll be tacky, but that's okay. Just this could be a little more impactful is all I'm saying. And then once I've set it down, I just blend it, and I don't even blend right where the most color is, I blend underneath that. And on this side, like, I feel like this is a common brush to use to blend your under eyes. I think I have fallout. Oh dear. Anyway. So as you can see, I feel like the moral of the story is just have a tacky base and do more packing than blending, but still, I feel like that's a difference right there. Let me go ahead and clean up my under eyes because I really do think, yeah, there's some fallout there. I don't really notice any on this side. but there was definitely a little blue there. I'm just gonna use a white. This is Smashbox. It might be all dried out. Okay, that's a very old shadow. I'll have to try and sharpen it down to see if that helps. Anyway, at this point, this is basically it. I'm trying to think if there's any other little tips or whatnot. But I'm just gonna go ahead and finish up my eyes and then we can close out this video and I'll give you guys any more tips and tricks. But yeah, this is how they're looking. Like I said, it's not that this is wrong, but this is just kind of to show you guys how you can get a little more of an impactful shadow. I'm gonna finish out my makeup and then we'll finish out this video. Okay, just kidding. I'm back real quick. I forgot I didn't do my inner corner. I'm going to use white. This is something that I really enjoy doing for an all matte look sometimes. It's just to do all matte in my outer corner, and since this has so many mattes, I'm gonna use the white and I'm gonna show you once again do's and don'ts. Again, take this loosely. But anyway, oh yeah, I forgot. Please ignore my wing liner. I messed up on this side so much I had to redo it, so since I did have to redo my under eyes, I went ahead and left a tacky base, and as you can see, the under eye is a little more impactful. But anyway, my wings aren't matching today. They're barely being cousins, definitely not sisters. So please ignore that. It's been quite a journey today. Anyway, a common thing I've seen is people to use little pencils like this and whatnot and just kind of fluff their inner corner shadow into their inner corner. And especially when I find that when you're using mattes, like a white or something like that in your inner corner, this really, I find, just doesn't help. As you can see, like, I can see white, but I think it's a testament more so to Menagerie Cosmetics having a good white. What I like to do whenever I use any type of inner corner, but especially for matte eyeshadow, I take a more small pointed brush and once again, pack instead of buff. And once I packed it how I want, it's my eyes watering a little bit because I was such a mess trying to get my eyeliner on. Anyway, once I've placed it how I've liked it, then I just take the same shadow and I'll just buff it, the edges of it. You can take a like a fluffy blending brush, like what you used on what I used on the other side, but I find that, you know, if you get a nice soft brush, even if it's small and detailed like this, it will still work really nice to diffuse the edges, like so. And another trick I totally forgot about, but I want to make sure I mention, is that when I use a white base, I don't like how white it leaves my underneath my brow bone, because it kind of looks stark between my skin color and that. It's like the only white thing on my face besides my inner corner. So a trick that I've been doing is just to take a small packing brush like this e.l.f. eyeshadow brush and taking my foundation shade, like a powder foundation. This is a little dark for me, but I'm using it for today. But anyway, I just pack it right on top of where I put that white concealer on my brow bone, and then once I've placed it, then I'll just blend out the edges, and I feel like that really takes away that odd white stripe against my brow bone. I mean, you don't really need to do it to this side because I did set this and it was with a skin tone color eye base, but anyway, I just want to show you that. Okay, at this point now I'm going to go put on some lipstick and then we can close out this video. Okay, so Levi woke up. He's down here feeding. I'll go ahead and stick up close-ups like I always like to do. Please ignore the lashes in case they're crazy. I'm trying to test these out, so wanted to wear them today, even though I don't know if they look very good. You can let me know what you think down below. I'm trying to test these out to see if they are worth it, and I've been having issues. But anyway, yeah, those are my kind of 5 tips for how I get pastels or neon shadows to really work for me. I hope you guys found this video helpful. As I said, I am not an expert when it comes to these, and as I also said, the don't side isn't bad. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. If you like very soft pastels, then do the don't side and you'll get that. For me, in my experience with the Menagerie palette, I feel like both sides look fine, but I just like, for me personally, if I'm going to go through the effort of doing pastels, I don't want to wash the color. I like my eyeshadow to really stand out, so this is how I've gotten my pastel shadows to really show up and to perform how I like my eyeshadows to perform and how I like my eye looks to look. So I hope you found this video helpful. I just kind of wanted to throw it out there because I did a YouTube search and I didn't see that many, especially when it came to how to use pastels. I didn't see that many videos. So since I think pastels are starting to become a little more popular and it's spring and people might be wanting to try to use this, maybe if the pastel palette you have isn't the most pigmented or isn't the best of quality, I hope that these tips and tricks that I shared with you today will help you kind of figure out how to get the most out of it and just give you some tips, basically, is all I was trying to do. But anyway, with all that said, thank you so much for watching. I just hope you found this video helpful, informative, or just entertaining, and if you did, please hit the thumbs up video on your way out. It really does help me out in the whole YouTube algorithm. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to spend some time here with me watching my video. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you very soon. he wanted to say goodbye too, but I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys.